Hello, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we're going to be continuing on with the Studs and Duds series, and here to break his down with me is Jordan Pelt. Jordan, thank you for joining me. It's nice to have you.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
Do you want to take a second here to tell everyone where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, thanks for the chance to give a plug. So, my handle is at Godfather League. Please connect. Please join with us. Would love to keep the conversation going.
All right, sounds good. I guess without further ado, we will get into it. We have your first player, your stud, Justin Herbert, 147 rushing yards, 4,739 passing yards, 25 TDs to 10 interceptions, 393.51 fantasy points in full PPR, good for 17.07 per game, finished as QB 11, currently going off the board on Fantasy Pros 45th overall as QB 7. Why do you like Herbert?
Yeah, so I got a chance to see Herbert last year in a playoff environment against the Jags, and unfortunately was on the wrong end of that, but just passes the eye test, has a new offensive coordinator, brand new weapon on the outside. I know that one of the big things we're all kind of waiting for is for it to all come together. So last year, in the beginning part of the season, he was kind of dealing with an injury himself as well as an injured offense. So I like the new offensive mindset. I'm a Cowboy fan. Kellen Moore being brought over, Quentin Johnson on the outside with maybe not having Mike Williams as many games as they were hoping for. So fully healthy offense. I like Herbert early.
Yeah, I agree. I had Herbert everywhere last year, and he disappointed. Obviously, killed a lot of my teams, but it was mostly his rib injury and a combination of injuries to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So I expect a huge bounce back. I'm going to remove him from the stream here quickly and bring up the ADP list. As I said before, he is going off the board 45th overall as QB7. We'll start with the range he's in. He's obviously outside the range of Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts. He seems to go in the group with Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Fields, himself, and Trevor Lawrence. Where do you think he fits among this group of five?
I think I'd take him at QB4 if I'm willing to put something behind the statement of him being a stud. I could argue right there with Burrow and Jackson. I think in the fantasy world, we know Justin Fields with his legs like Jackson could make me look foolish at the end of the year. But like I mentioned, the reason I like him, the weapons, the new coaching philosophy, they should all be healthy. I'm taking him right there in that range with Burrow and Jackson.
Yeah, I think he's 5 for me. I agree. Burrow, I like Burrow's weapons better. They seem to be a little younger, and they seem to on the upswing. The Chargers seem like they may be taking one last kick at it with these weapons. I think, like I said, Burrow. I think then I would go Herbert, and then the other three behind him. So, not much disagreement from me there. Below him, I assume there's no one below him. You're taking over him. Watson, Dak, Tua, Cousins, Jones, Richardson. It gets pretty ugly.
Well, there's someone in the discussion, I would say that. Again, for reasons that we kind of just touched on, there's a couple people in the higher level of the community where people know they talk about rushing upside. So when you publish something on a social media or you put something like this in recording, you do it because you want to have some attachment to the confidence, statement you're making. Deshaun Watson intrigues me. Is it all going to come together? We don't know. But if there's someone that I'm willing to just be somewhat taking a gamble, Watson, when healthy on an arguably less superior offense in the Houston days, proved that, when you have that rushing upside, I think he was top three, maybe 2 or 3 of those seasons. So fool me if he's not ready, but, getting his feet wet at the end of last year, I think now having a full off season, Deshaun Watson, I've had a lot of comments on. So I would say Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I don't mind Watson, but I think I prefer Herbert pretty heavily. Who do you want next out of your three?
Let's stick with studs.
All right, that would be Cleveland running back Nick Chubb, if I could get it up. 1,525 rushing yards, 239 in the air, 13 touchdowns, 303.9 PPR points, 16.55 per game. Excuse me. Finished as RB6 and is going off the board currently 15th overall. That is good for RB7. Why is he your stud?
Okay, so I know this stat doesn't always correlate, but when a guy like Nick Chubb has an historical yard per touch, yard per carry average, we have all been waiting for one thing in Stefanski's offense, which was when is Kareem Hunt getting kicked out? So for just an absurd efficiency, I think a lot of sharps understand Nick Chubb's one of the best in the game. Just I'm shocked they don't really use him as much as in the passing game as I think they should, but when you have an elite metric and efficiency that he has, and now Kareem Hunt, assuming he's out the door, I am all in on Nick Chubb this year.
I'm wondering what they're going to do, assuming Hunt's gone. If they will finally throw him the ball, because when they have thrown him the ball, he's shown he's decent at it. Or if they're just going to dump it off to Jerome Ford. I don't understand why Chubb wouldn't be given the ball here.
Stefanski, when Stefanski was in Minnesota, and a lot of his coaching philosophy just frustrates the hell out of fantasy owners, because you're right. Like, there were some games where Nick Chubb was given kind of workhorse type of targets and receptions and seemed to do well. But I think Stefanski, like most coaches this year, really want a second player on the field and maybe reduce touches for some other reasons. But I'm with you.
All right, RB7. I'm not going to touch the top five here. McCaffrey, Eckler, Barkley, Bijan, Taylor. Let's get into after that. Would you take him over Jacobs, Henry, Pollard, Stevenson? Where do you have him in that group of five, him and the other four?
It is so hard with recency bias, and after Jacobs putting up the year he did, I'm not touching Robinson, but with some of those names, I would argue Barkley and JT are in contention as far as Chubb outperforming. Bijan and the amount of touches he's expected, like Eckler, he just stays on the field. I'm taking Chubb over Henry and Stevenson without a doubt. Pollard, I could be talked into. We're not quite sure. Him being in the first year of a bell cow type of role as of now. They haven't brought anyone in yet, but I think Chubb could be argued as anyone in like the first 3 to 5 spots, and so it's not much variance. But there might be a name or two I would take him before them.
I see him as kind of the boring middleman in this group. I like Jacobs easily first. I would take Henry. Henry and Jacobs are the two I'm targeting. Chubb kind of sits in the middle as if he's there, but I'm not targeting him. Pollard and Stevenson are the two I think are overvalued and I'm avoiding. So that kind of sums up how I feel about Chubb. Don't like him, don't dislike him. He never really seems to be there when I'm comfortable drafting him. I always just go with someone else. Like I said, I take Jacobs and Henry over him, but I take him over Pollard and Stevenson. He's kind of just Mr. Boring in between for me, but he definitely has the potential there. Like I said, he doesn't excite me all that much.
Yeah, as a Longhorn alum and just infatuated by Robinson, we all know his ceiling, which his ceiling is right there in the spot he's in. Barkley, I think he kind of returned to form last year, and Eckler, just like Chubb and some other people like Pollard, people in the industry talk about efficiency, and every time they touch the football, it just has an unbelievable ceiling. So it's kind of splitting hairs at this point, but Chubb's one of those players, like you said, it's not sexy, but the ROI is consistent.
All righty. Next up, let's go with the less exciting of the two, Matthew Stafford. Injury plagued season last year, 9 rushing yards. Wow, there's your rushing upside for you. That's what, a half a yard per game. Awesome. 2,087 passing yards, 10 TDs to 8 interceptions, 161.13 full PPR points, good for 12.82 per game, finished as QB 32, and is currently going off the board at 129 overall, which is good for QB 21. Why are you low on Stafford?
Yeah, so year in and year out, there's guys like DeAndre Swift that just show this level of elite play that when they're healthy, they shine. It's the concern of, is Stafford truly healthy? Last year, I kind of ignored summer reports as far as him not really throwing the football a whole lot. I'm a baseball guy, so the College World Series tonight has the same question. Will they let their ace go, and how long will he go? But Stefania Bell and some people in the medical side talk about return to play. So I like Stafford. I'm glad he got his championship, but some lack of weapons outside of Cup. I'm just not sure I'm going to pull the trigger on Stafford. So maybe it's more of a fade than it is a bust or a dud. Just return to play is where most of my questions at for Stafford this year.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Like, I was, I'm not a Lions fan. I grew up a Lions fan right across the border, but I had a special spot for Stafford. It was nice to see him win, but I don't. I have a few shares of Stetson Bennett because I don't think Stafford gets through the season, and even if he does, they essentially have Cooper Kupp coming off a season-ending injury and nothing else. Van Jefferson, Puka Nakua, Tyler Higbee, like this offense is really, really bad. And with an aging, injury plagued quarterback, I think this may be Stafford's last year. I don't really think he has anything else to play for. He's made the money, he's got his ring. May just be time to call it quits here. Let's bring up the board. I'm pretty sure we know we're going to be taking everyone in the range over him, but let's just see where he falls, anyways. Um, QB 21. Yeah. Derek Carr, Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett, Kyler Murray. I think I'd take all of them over Stafford. Kyler Murray kind of worries me. I don't know what his health is going to be. I thought he was going to miss significant time. It's sounding like he should be ready to go week one. Not a big fan of Jordan Love. Not a big fan of Kenny Pickett. Not a huge Derek Carr fan. I still think I'd take Stafford last out of those five. How about you?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think Jordan Love has Geno Smith potential, and that franchise knows how to put the next QB in waiting in a great spot. So that's still too early. Derek Carr might have a healthy Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. That offense is decent when they're healthy. Kenny Pickett and some of these guys towards the bottom. I mean, QB2, QB3, and like Q2, QB formats. Like there's youth there, but Kyler Murray scares me. Um, Dr. David Chow and a lot of, again, the medical professionals were even indicating it might be 7 to 10 weeks. And then, of course, if they're playing for Caleb Williams next season, I've seen people question maybe if Kyler Murray might be out the door. And even the way his contract was kind of curiously written, if you want to say that, with the homework assignment. So he's a name I'm
Yeah.
willing to fade. Stafford again, like I like Stafford. I'm glad he got his championship, but I'm just concerned about the arm. And so I think I would even go Bryce Young or Stroud or Purdy if we knew he was starting, just for
Yeah.
the sheer risk reward scenario.
There are a lot of players on this list that I am not fond of, and I still think I would take Stafford last out of all of them. I just don't see any scenario. I don't have anything left of him in any shares of him left in Dynasty, and I can't see a team where I acquire him or where I draft him in redraft or Dynasty. I just think I'm out. I think he's come to the end of his run. This is his Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. Who was the other? Oh, Philip Rivers, where they have that one last season. It's obvious he doesn't have it anymore, and he just moves on and is no longer there. So, yep, I am fading him as well. That moves us to our final player, your second dud, Devontae Adams. There we go. 0 rushing yards, 1,516 receiving yards for 14 touchdowns, 324 full PPR points for 19.74 per game, was the wide receiver 3 and is going 13th overall in Fantasy Pros ADP. Actually, he's moved down one according to the site to 14. Wide receiver 7, why are you fading Devontae?
So when you're on recordings like this, you can't backtrack. So let me just say, I think Adams is an elite separator and just has been an alpha forever. My concern is QB play. There's been some people I have followed in the industry that talk about like how bad Garoppolo is outside the numbers. I don't want to put any shade on any of his other offensive weapons. I know that there's a part of me that thinks that he can still perform in the range he's going, but I fear he might be getting double teamed or might have defenses just absolutely focusing on him now that Waller's gone. And so I think it's just the range where I'm concerned. I think there's more questions than there is more confidence. It's not a question of his talent. It's just some of the pieces together. So it's very anecdotal. I just don't know if I'm taking him that early this year.
I find I have some shares of him. He's falling. That's why I don't love the quarterback situation. I don't love the team situation. I don't love that he seems to be angry with being there. Excuse me. Still having said that, looking at, let me bring it up so everyone can see what I'm looking at instead of just talking to myself here. One sec. Here's the ADP page for Fantasy Pros. Okay, so Jefferson, Chase, Hill, Cup, Diggs. I don't think I take him over any of these, but after that, like for redraft purposes, I think I probably take Adams 7. In Dynasty, I'm going Lamb, AJ Brown, St. Brown, Wilson, Waddle, Smith. But for this year, just in a redraft league, I still think he's a top 6 wide receiver for me. This says 14th overall. I don't think I've seen him go 14th overall. Like I've seen him drop into the second and third round of best ball drafts. We seem to be that point in the summer where the only ones still in it are the degenerates, and most of the degenerates play dynasty, so they overvalue youth. So you've got the young guys going 10 picks ahead of where their ADP is, and the old guys dropping around. I agree with everything you said. I just think at his current price, like if I can get him end of the second, early third, which is where I've seen him, even end of the second, I think I'm going to take my shares of him. But like you're not wrong. There's a lot to be scared of there. I definitely think his best years are behind him. But having said that, Jimmy G doesn't have to do all that much. I think he's going to have less touchdowns this year, probably less receiving yards, but he's probably going to have twice as many receptions. Might end up with 200 targets this year of just being fed over and over like Michael Thomas was back in his slant boy days.
Yeah, no, I hear you with some of the things that you just, outlined. It's one of those things I'd rather be told I was wrong than taking a guy that just seems like it's just at the current moment. I think format is super critical. You're totally right about that. I have a third round reversal coming up in the Scott Fish Bowl where you have to ask yourself kind of a question of would you take him there or would you fade him there? And I think current state without knowing Garoppolo's situation, who else might be brought in. It's just sometimes it does pay to be the alpha on a really bad team, which you might be totally right. The targets and a lot of ugly fourth quarter touchdowns or stats may prove me wrong, but I think I'm fading him at his current ADP.
Yeah, like I said, it all depends on what you're willing, what your risk tolerance is for him. I get that nobody wants to be the same could be said, I guess, with Cup this year. There's so many things going against him. He could easily crush this ADP, or he could just be a total bust. And we see how fast Robert Woods fell off, how fast Allen Robinson fell off. A lot of these receivers seem to hit the wall pretty quickly. I fear Adams may hit the wall more abruptly than Cup, just based on the role and the type of receiver he is. But he's not an avoid for me. He's not necessarily a target. Like I said, I would much rather have obviously Jefferson and Chase, but I'd much rather have Hill, Cup, Diggs, and I wouldn't go out of my way to avoid Lamb, Brown, St. Brown, Wilson, Waddle, any of these guys. He's one of these, probably the top, all the way down to Smith, Higgins, Olave, the top 15, if you want to include Metcalf, who I'm not all that high on, but the top 14 or 15, I'm pretty comfortable with any of them.
Same.
So, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
avoiding them, not targeting them. I'm going to have some shares of them. I'm going to avoid him in some leagues, but, he's not someone I'm avoiding.
Yeah, I mean, look at AJ Brown on the biggest stage last year, finally kind of found a home. St. Brown is the world's fantasy darling right now for obvious reasons. And then there's just names where could you get similar value out of a Garrett Wilson now with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football with, domination and efficiency metrics last year too. So again, like I'll eat my words if it comes back to bite me, but there's just names in that range, and I think even the last time we spoke to generate these particular names, I think it's even like you said, I think it's even fallen since we spoke. So I'm with you. The top 15 are guys I like for equal reasons.
My graphics. Oh, there we go. My graphics were having a slight stroke for a second there. All right, Jordan. Well, thank you for coming on for your studs and duds. You want to take another chance here to plug yourself and tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, Aaron, thank you so much for the invitation. Enjoyed our conversation, and you could find
Yeah.
me on Twitter at Godfather League and most social media platforms with the same handle.
All right. Well, this has been Studs and Duds with Jordan Pelt. Once again, I'm Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist. This has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thank you again to Jordan for joining me, and thank you everyone for watching. Have a good day. Take care.